Hello everyone, this is Ramsey Johnson and I'm going to do another video for you guys today because I like going into a shed by myself and talking to myself about stuff that, my wife's not really into this shit, so I really can't talk to her about this. She's over it. She doesn't really want to hear training stuff. She wants to hear other shit. So the only time I can actually talk about is if I leave the house or I retreat into a shed and make videos by myself. So I don't know if that's creepy, but maybe it is. Okay. Anyway, so today what I'm going to go over is conjugate is not periodized and how that's kind of false. Last video I did one on, how it's false that you can't get enough volume out of like max effort work. So today I wanted to go kind of over another falsity that conjugate really isn't periodized, which, depending on your perspective, you may believe that, you may not believe that. But the main reason I thought of this is because I watched a YouTube video with Chad Wesley Smith and Mike Israetel. They did a few years ago. Like this got done writing their scientific principles of strength training. So they were kind of going through all these different training methods and trying to kind of critique them according to their outline principles of their book. And conjugate, maybe not conjugate specifically, but West Side specifically fell under that. They critiqued it specifically, said that it wasn't periodized mainly because it doesn't have a hypertrophy phase, and in any kind of linear, you got your hypertrophy phase where you got a lot of volume, and then you go into strength phase, and you go into your peaking. So it doesn't follow the generally known trajectory of kind of training. So they kind of gave it a thumbs down on that sort of thing. So I'm here to dispel that, because I don't believe that's necessarily true. And so we're going to go talk about what periodization is. So periodization is defined as planned manipulation of training variables that is usually targeted at a predetermined outcome. So what does that mean? That usually means like if you have a meet, if you're a lifter, football game, volleyball game, baseball, hell, probably can even do it for chess or weight loss. We'll keep with the fitness theme, but you have to adapt your training modalities in order to so that your body doesn't get used to a certain training modality, and then you accommodate to it, and you don't make any progress. So you got to adapt it and manipulate it over a period of time. So that's what the average accepted definition of that is. What variables we're talking about, especially to like powerlifting or strength training, is your sets, your reps, the load, maybe even the movements and different things you do. So they said that conjugate doesn't fall within this, and they don't have planned manipulation of training variables. So what I'm going to try to do is show you that it actually does, and I hope you enjoy it. I want to kind of go over kind of the generic setup. And when I say generic, because you can do this so many different ways, it's ridiculous. That's why I like it. But generically speaking, you have a max effort lower body, a max effort upper body, a dynamic effort lower body, and a dynamic effort upper body workouts in a week's time. So you're rotating. You're doing 2 max efforts, you're doing 2 dynamic efforts in a week, both lower and upper body. That's kind of the general split of a conjugate style program. The main 3 training principles you are trying to hit are hitting on absolute strength, which is max effort, strength speed or velocity training, and then also repetition, like your standard bodybuilding hypertrophy work. So you're trying to train all 3 principles in a week. Is pretty much the goal. So your max effort day, you're going to have 1 exercise, and they can change and vary. One of the main criticism is it varies too much to really translate over, which depending on how you do it, I guess that could be correct. But you pretty much get 1 exercise to your max effort. So you're completely giving it all out for prescribed range or sets. Then you drop down and you can either drop down same exercise and just drop down to 80% and do some strength movements, which means you're from the 6 to 8 rep range for how many sets you're doing. And then you got 3 or 4 exercises where you're kind of just doing isolation stuff, bodybuilding stuff, either from 10 to 25 reps per set of that particular exercise. Your dynamic effort day, you're doing one, I say 1 to 2 because if it's dynamic lower and you're training powerlifting specific, you're going to do squat and deadlift on the same day. But you got 1 to 2 movements. It's got it's a low load, which is a lower percentage. And there's many different ways you can do that too as well. And it's all about force output, moving it as fast as possible. And you're doing anywhere from 16 to 30 reps of that. There again, you're gonna have one strength movement that kind of feeds into it, 6 to 8 rep range, and you got 3 to 4 isolation movements, anywhere from the 10 to 12 range. So you're hitting all 3 training principles: the absolute strength, speed strength, and there's also one in there. I haven't really dived into it, and I'll maybe do the next one because you got strength speed and you got speed strength. So they're 2 different types, and I don't really know quite the difference, but I'll get into that later when I kind of figure it out. But you're doing strength, speed, velocity training, and you're doing repetition. So that's your basic split. So if you're kind of looking at it as a periodization standpoint, you're kind of looking at, okay, you're hitting, your high end, right? Kind of just basic terms. You're kind of doing your peaking stuff. You're kind of you're maxing out your potential, trying to recruit as many muscle units as possible, kind of what you would do with kind of a peak or a build up to like a powerlifting competition. Strength movement. So you're trying to build strength. So you're staying in kind of a lower mid rep range. And then you're also trying to build muscle, which is like your hypertrophy. So you're kind of hitting all 3 of them within the same workout, within the same week. And that's kind of like you're trying to hit them all. You're trying to do all 3 facets within a microcycle. It's pretty much the goal of the whole thing. So you're getting your hypertrophy work, you're getting your strength building work, and you're also working on peak strength or max strength or absolute strength, and you're doing it all within the same week. So it is periodized. But to break it down even more, the main critic, when he talked about the West Side method not being periodized enough for like a, hypertrophy, strength, and peaking, there's some things that they did, even just the West Side people, that just kind of proves it wrong. Number one, they waived resistance, so they didn't always do bands. They sometimes did chains. Sometimes they didn't use chains or bands at all. They rotated their max efforts between singles and triples. So they rotated that, and if they were further away from a contest, they'd probably be doing triples. As they got closer to contests, they would do singles. Later, they actually did 5x5 because they got so many people in the gym that it was hard to run a monolift effectively fast enough, so they weren't getting enough volume quick enough, so they actually increased the volume. So they did do that too as well. Matt Winning did this. He references a lot in a lot of his YouTube videos. One of the main reasons why he got kicked out of Westside is because he rotated gear, briefs, and no gear. So what he was doing, he was building on his muscular strength to help with the gear. Dave Tate also said this a lot, that, a lot of his carryover exercises, he put those in closer to a prep. Like one of his favorite one was closed grip incline. If he could get that thing to increase and grow, he would get better carryover. And then this one's just kind of icing on the cake. They developed the Circumax phase, which is a 2-week intense, like a lot of weight with a lot of band resistance to overload you to be able to come down for 2 weeks, because it would just beat the hell out of you. Take a week, a minimal, and then go into contests. So they're kind of working on that super compensation. So definitely a periodized thing. Definitely thinking about long-term plan. Definitely manipulating variables. And so that's the old West Side. So I'm kind of, since it's my video and I can talk about whatever I want, this is what I'm doing. So Me, I rotate all my max effort work from fives, triples, and doubles. Fives because I want to build hypertrophy. I want to great enough volume within my training further out to build muscle mass, and to more muscle means more power if you train it. Then as you get closer, threes and twos. I also change my dynamic effort reps and sets. So right now I'm doing 12 times 2, 24 reps for my lower body, and upper body I'm doing 12 to 3. As the weight waves up, because I'm doing 3-week waves, as it waves up and gets into the 60s, I'm also dropping back on the volume. So it's kind of following that kind of almost linear kind of thing. Hey, the more the weight goes up, the reps come down. I also wave tempo, pause, and regular squatting and benching. So 1 week I will do tempo, next week I will do a pause, and then the last week I'll just do regular. Kind of going on the idea like I got this when Matt Winning was doing it, because you're trying to you're pretty much playing a mind trick. So you're thinking tempo is hard, right? Pause is hard. And then all of a sudden the day you kind of just put it all together. So you're kind of almost tricking your mind to think like, oh, heavy, hard, not so hard, and then it's easy. So you kind of getting your body to work for you. And I also waive my resistance. So I will bands, using bands all the time is not really ideal for me because it blows the shit out of my elbows, my knees, my joints. So I waive that. So I will do regular, I will do chains, and then I will do bands. So that way I'm not getting beat up all the time. So hopefully with all this scribbling and writing and hieroglyphics, it can kind of illustrate the fact that you are periodizing when you use a conjugate type program. You are utilizing 3 basic principles of strength, or just training in general, because this can be manipulated for any kind of training or any kind of sport. And you're doing all 3 modes of training: hypertrophy, strength, and maximal work, all within 1 week. And you continually do that over a course of time. Whereas a traditional type program, you wouldn't really hit on your maximal stuff until you were getting close to a contest. Whereas further out, you're still doing maximal work, you're still doing strength work, and you're still doing hypertrophy work. And you're doing that continuously all up, and you're just changing the variables, sets, reps, load as you get closer to competition. Hope that all made sense. It does in my mind. I hope it does in yours. Hope you liked it. Hope you see this kind of stuff as valuable and you learn something from it. If not, then beautiful thing about Instagram or whatever, you just kind of scroll up. So hope you all have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you all later.